Everyone. Today we're going to present the rehabilitation protocol for the anterior cruciate ligament injury of Mariana Pajón. Our group is formed by Kevin Cortez, Laura Guillón, Lina Uribe, and Ana Sofia Romero. So we present the 5-stage rehabilitation protocol. We're going to talk about 12 steps that are critical to successful anterior cruciate ligament rehabilitation. The first one is the preparation of both the patient and their knee for surgery, because the pre-operative phase is important for the physical and psychological preparation of the patient for surgery. It also may represent a reduction of the risk of postoperative complications, a higher probability of a successful return to sport after surgery, and minimization of the risk of a second ACL injury. The second one is to restore full passive knee extension, because the loss of full knee extension is one of the most common complications after ACL reconstruction. The third one is reduce postoperative inflammation. The fourth one is the gradual restoration of full knee flexion. This recovery of knee flexion is a much more gradual process than the recovery of knee extension, starting with 90 degrees in the first week and progressing by approximately 10 degrees per week. And this will allow a full knee flexion for the 4 to 6 weeks after surgery. The fifth one is to restore complete patellar mobility, because the loss of patellar mobility results in range of motion complication and difficulty in activating the quadriceps. The sixth is to individualize and adjust the rehabilitation program based on the status of the knee. So it's important to take into account the graft type. The most common are autogenous patellar tendon and hamstring tendon. And if there is the presence of another injury in another part of the knee complex, for example, if there was a meniscal injury, that this was not the case, but Mariana did present a partial collateral ligament injury. Also, it's important to know that female athletes are more prone to suffer this kind of injury, because an increased genu valgum alignment and the presence of some muscles imbalance, for example, between quadriceps and hamstring and in the hip and core complex. The seventh one is to reestablish quadriceps activation, because the inhibition of the quadriceps muscle is common after ACL reconstruction. The eighth one is to restoration of dynamic functional stability of knee complex. This may be achieved with a proprioceptive training, that it can start during the second postoperative week, depending of the pain, the swelling, and the quadriceps control. The ninth one is the knee stability and dynamic control must be provided from both above and below. So it's important to also work the hip complex and the lower leg, not only to focus on the knee. The 10th one is to protect the knee, both now and later, with the adequate progression of the load. And the last one are to return to running and back to sport using objective criteria.
The immediate postoperative phase, days 1 and 7. The goals for Mariana Pajón is restore full the positive knee extension and disminute joint swelling and pain, restore patellar mobility, graduality intrusive tuning flexion, restore independent ambulation, and restabilize quadriceps control. The phase days 1 and 7. The method police for Mariana Pajón is police is an acronym that comes from English for was acronym standing for protection, optimal load, ice, compression, and elevation. Compression does not use the injured part of the body. This will give time to the injury to heal and prevent future damage. Will need cruciates or carring to help protect and my time the injury of the rest. The ultimate load referred to work with adequate loads to promote proper recovery from the injury. And the ice is therapy or cryotherapy is the most commonly used immediate treatment for acute sports injuries, performing and dresses blessing from vasoconstriction at the site of injury and the doses and inflammation, and reduces the pain, reduces muscle spasms, and the ice should be left in place for about 15 or 20 minutes. We can visit between 3 and 4 points at the day. And compression, the goal is to decrease blood supply to the injured area, and unbalanced may be used, but you should avoid dictating in it too much and not blocking blood circulation. Compression can be alternate with the use of ice. The last is elevation. With the elevation of the injured lift, the ice is now reduced low pressure in the injured area, squeeze skin to reduce inflammation and the pain. The post-operative day 1, Mariana Pajón need brace and immobilizer applied to knee, lock it in full extension during ambulation and sleeping, and use 2 crutches with the waking tolerate. Exercise. The one is ankle pumps. Second is overtures into full passive knee extension. 3 is active and passive knees flexion. Go be day 5. 4 is straining left raises flexion, adduction and abduction. 5 quadriceps isometric setting. 6 is Hastings strength, and 7 is closet kinet chain exercise, mini squash weighting shifts. Muscle stimulation. Use muscle stimulation during active muscle exercise 4 and 6 hours days. Continuous passive motion as needed, 0 to 45 and 50, as tolerate as a dirty be physical. Ice and evaluation ice 20 minutes out of every hours, and elevation with knees in the full stage. Extension. Postoperative days 2 and 3. Here is the room, remove brace, perform exercise 4 to 6 times a day. The first is multi-ankle isometrics at go in 60 kin station. 2 is knee extension go to the 14, and 3 is the overperson in extension. Knee extension should be 0 to swing hypertension in per extension, and 4 is the patellar mobilization. Postoperative days 2 3 days is round remote brace perform Rome exercise for 4 to 6 times a day. The 5 is ankle pumps. The 6 is restraining leg raise 3 directions. The 7 is mini squash at wearing sheets. 8 is quadriceps isometric settings. For Mariana Pajón, the muscle stimulation is the electrical muscular stimulation to squash 6 hours days, continuous passive motion, 0 to 90 as needed ice, and evaluation ice 20 minutes out of every hours, and elevate leg with knees in full extension. And postoperative days 4 to 7. The first is a multi-ankle isometrics at go to 60 knee extension. 2 is a knee extension go to the 40. 3 is overpressure into extension, full extension, and 0 to 5, and 7 hyperextension. And 4 is the patellar mobilization, and the 5 and 8 times daily. And 5 ankle pumps. And 6 is straining leg raises and 3 directions. 7 is mini squash and wake shifts. 8 is straining hamstring curls. 9 quadriceps isometric setting. 10 proprioception and balance activities. In proprioception, we will work with the injured left inflation and eyes closed. Even the injured left will not be support. And the neuromuscular training proprioception is the open kinetic change positive active joint repositioning up to go and 60, and close kinetic chains squash waiting shields with repositioning. The last is the muscle stimulation, is the electrical muscle stimulation, continuous 6 hours days, continuous positive motion 0 to 90 as needed ice, and elevation ice 20 minutes of every hours, and elevate legs with knees full extension.
The second postoperative phase is the early rehabilitation phase between the second and the 4th week. The criteria to enter to this phase are the quadriceps control that may be assessed with the ability to perform good quadriceps sets and straight leg raises, full passive knee extension, independent ambulation, passive range of motion between 0 and 90 degrees, minimal joint effusion, and good patellar mobility. The goals of this phase are to maintain full passive knee extension, at least 0 to 5 to 7 degrees hyperextension, gradually increases knee flexion, normalize patellar mobility, diminish swelling and pain, improve muscle control and activation, and restore proprioception and neuromuscular control. So in the second week, the athlete should continue log brace for ambulation and sleeping, and weight bearing should be performed as tolerated. The goal is to discontinue crutches 10 to 14 days postoperatively, and some exercises that can be performed are over pressure into extension, Weight shifts, leg press is important to maintain it between 0 and 60 degrees. Self-range of motion stretching, 4 to 5 times daily, and lumbopelvic strengthening. And in the third week, the athlete can discontinue locked brace, and if necessary, can use a brace that allows allows range of motion of the knee. And some exercises are lateral step overs, front step down, progress proprioception exercises. The athlete can start doing squats in a stable surface, front and side lunges, stationary bicycle, and passive range of motion between 0 to 105 degrees.
The third phase in the article is called progressive strengthening neuromuscular control phase. This phase, in the case of Mariana Pajón, in theory, start from week 4 to week 10. The criteria to enter this phase are to have an active ROM from 0 to 115 and grades, have a quadriceps strength of 60% of the contralateral side, minimal or no full joint fusion, no patellofemoral pain, and unchanged KT test bilateral values. This test is with a machine that measures the anterior dilation. In the other words, this test quantifies Blackman test for ACL injury. The goals or objectives of this phase are restore full knee ROM, that means 125 grades, and very important, this movement must be symmetric. Improve lower extremity strength, enhance proprioception, balance, and neuromuscular control, improve muscular endurance, and very important to restore limb confidence and function. Okay, in this phase is recommended exercise that include close and open kinetic chain, and start with endurance exercise. In this type of exercise, we can use functional movement to Mariana. In this case, is functional ride a bicycle. In some that this exercise is possible to put or add the proprioception component. If it's possible, you can in the rehabilitation Mariana can use these elements to increase the exercise difficulty through of weeks.
We have the criteria to enter the phase number 4. In this one, we will need a range of motion between 0 to 125 degrees or greater. We need quadriceps strength at a 75% of contralateral side, knee extension flexor or extensor ratio of 70 to 75%. No change in the KT values, with comparable with the contralateral side, no pain or fusion, is satisfactory clinical examination, satisfactory systematic test, and a hop test in 80% of contralateral leg, and subjective knee scoring with 80 points or better. In the advanced activity phase, it will last the 10 to 16 weeks, and the goals are here: normalize lower extremity strength, enhance muscular power and endurance, improve neuromuscular control, and perform select sport-specific drills. That's why we will focus on continuous strengthening and proprioceptive exercise that Mariana was already doing in the previous phase. Second, it will work with symmetrical performance with sport-specific drills. And third, we will go for the progress to full sport and have the return to sport. The exercise recommended are these ones, like leg press, wall squats, hip abduction and abduction, hip flexion and extension, knee extension to 90 to 40 degrees, hamstring curls, and standing toe calf. All of these exercises will work with some different ways according to the progression, and this is really important in cycling because strong legs will always help to be more efficiently, to have a better performance in cycling, and also avoid the fatigue of the muscles in legs. And like cycling is a low impact activity, is not great for supporting bone density, so the strength training can fill in those gaps and help you build like stronger bones and more powerful core for all day riding. Additional boosts strength and can be great for recovery and for injury prevention, not just about your legs or about the legs of the athlete, but conditioning the core and upper body. That is also very important to have stability, endurance, and power. We have the other exercises like seated to calf, lateral lunges, lateral step ups, plyometric leg press, and step down that all are more kind of strength, that is power. And then we have the neuromuscular training. These are one of the examples of kind of some exercises that she could perform, like the lateral step overs, lateral lunges, tiltward drills, and front step down movement. This could be done with resistance bands and lateral stepping with resistance bands. Also, the squat performed on a tiltward is really useful to improve neuromuscular control, the single leg extend on foam, while performing other movements in upper extremity, using like a medicine ball of 3.2 kilograms. And all these exercises are really useful in order to avoid injuries. Then we will also have to train in plyometric exercise or plyometric training, because this kind of train like is about powerful movements that involve a system of reactive exercises and eccentric contraction, followed immediately by an explosive concentric contraction. This will allow to go through any movement using like the stretch shortening cycle, and these develop better the muscles respond and contraction while we are performing fast movements like in the sport of Mariana is really important, and it could also help to have a better power performance. We have now an algorithmic flowchart that is used to track the athlete's progress through the late rehabilitation stage. So first is that you can return to the sport rehab if the minimum criteria is present, like drop, vertical jump, landing force, bilateral symmetry, and in the modify agility test have within 10%, could do the single limb and with an average peak of 10 seconds, that is bilateral. And finally, we will reassess the top jump, and it is needed to achieve the 20% percentage points of improvement comparing with the initial test. If this is already half, then we could talk about the reintegration to interval sport participation. This is according to the minimum international knee documentation committee, or IKDC. This is specific for ACL reconstruction. Yeah, next. So the criteria that will allow to finally return to activity phase are the full ROM, the unchanged TT test within 2.5 millimeters of the opposite side, the isocinetic test that fulfills criteria. This isocinetic test is about the quadriceps bilateral comparison that would be 80% or greater, the hamstring bilateral comparison in 110% or greater, the quadriceps torque relation with the body weight ratio of 55%, and the hamstring and quadriceps ratio in 70% or greater. Also, it's important to have the proprioception, like with this test in 100% on the control lateral leg, the functional test in a result of 85% or greater, satisfactory results in the clinical examination, and a subjective knee score that will be 90 points at least. In the phase of return to activity, the period of time is about the 16 week between 22 week. And in this one, we have the goal of the gradual return to full unrestricted sports. So in this one, we already have to achieve maximal strength and endurance and normalize neuromuscular control, progressing the skills training. So for this phase, we continue with the exercises. Yeah, like continue strengthening, continue neuromuscular control drills, continue with the plyometric drills, progress running and agility program. In this case for her, it will be focused on the cycling, and also progress to this specific training. We will have agility drills that is really important, that is mixed and work together with the plyometric training. And finally, we will have the gradual return to sport drills, in which is hope that she is already training with her team.